So this guy tweeted, and I'm not bringing it up because he attacked me. I'm bringing it up because of the thinking in his tweet that I think is it kind of connects to what we were talking about last time with regards to Muslims in the West and their views on Islam and how it differs from Muslims in the Muslim world. Because he said something, I don't remember the tweet exactly. He said something along the lines of, Shaheed, who's from the merchant class, which is also a strange term because they don't really use that in this. They would say business class or the upper class or whatnot. But that because I'm supposedly from the merchant class, I wouldn't understand, like basically tawakkul, and the idea that even against all odds, even against what would be your evaluation in realpolitik, even against all of that, the Muslims can achieve this victory, and that what did he say? When our armies enter Jerusalem or march on Jerusalem and liberate Jerusalem,
but you'll be there to trumpet.
I'll be there, like a hypocrite, saying, I always believed that this could happen. And the personal slight isn't important to me. I'm used to that. Yeah. But the thing that's important to me is the thinking that's reflected in this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just to add also the fact that he's juxtaposing that your paradigm of real politicking and to those glorious stories of old. I suppose the Sirah and the stories of the Prophet,
from which I draw.
Most of the
realpolitik, my understanding of realpolitik, I understand it from the Sirah. That's where I'm getting it from. I'm not getting it from Henry Kissinger. I'm getting it from the Sirah, and I'm getting it from the way the Muslims conducted themselves and the way that they actually engaged, not only in battles but in all of their strategies. There's realpolitik in what they did. But for you, who said this, those are fables, and they're myths that you want to believe in. And this is very dangerous because now you're saying and trying to promote this really magical thinking that, that the Muslim armies are going to march on Jerusalem and you'll have a victory and whatnot. And the idea that this will work simply because we're Muslims and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on our side. And that therefore, tawakkal ala Allah, and khalli wali with strategy, khalli wali with tactics, khalli wali with understanding realpolitik and understanding geopolitics and all that. None of that is relevant. The only thing that matters is tawakkul. And this highlights what I was talking about in the last live session yesterday. No, it was just yesterday. About the difference between the way that Muslims in the West think about Islam versus the way Muslims in the Muslim world think about Islam. Because someone who's talking like this, someone who's saying these types of things, what that brother said in his tweet, that sort of a person would be referred to in Egypt by Muslims as a drug dealer, because he's selling the drug of this magical thinking. And that's what they used to call people in Egypt during the anti-coup movement against Sisi, the opposition groups. Muslims, not secularists, not leftists, not communists, not liberals, Muslims. When they would see someone who was making this kind of irresponsible, uneducated, uninformed, unrealistic type of rhetoric that is only intended to sort of give Muslims a false sense of, unrealistic hope, that has no basis in that. There's no plan involved. There's no planning involved. There's no strategy involved. There's no actual evaluation of power dynamics, or as I say, geopolitics or economics or anything. There's no actual thought going into it. It's just words to make you feel better. It's really treating Islam the same way that, what was it? Was it Marx who said the opiate of the masses?
Yeah.
He was, of course, talking about Christianity because that's the only religion that he could think about in Europe. It's using Islam as an opiate. It's using Islamic rhetoric as an opiate, to not actually address any problems, but to make people feel a certain kind of way. And that's why you think that you're saying something great and wonderful and righteous, But Muslims in the Muslim world will call you a drug dealer for what you just said. It's this magical thinking about tawakkul.
Yeah.
And not understanding that the Sahaba didn't think like that.
Yeah.
The way that you think that they thought, they didn't think like that. And if you had acted like that and talked like that, you would not have gotten an ear from them. They would have turned away from you. I mean, there was an example in when there was the Ridda Wars. No, sorry, not the Ridda Wars. When they were fighting against Musaylama al-Kadhab, the liar who was calling himself a prophet. I mean, this
was a lie.
No, this is after. Under Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu. They were in a battle against Musaylama and his army and his forces, and Ikramah bin Abi Jahl was leading the Muslims, the Mujahideen at that time, and he was in a position to attack Musaylama. He was ready to attack, and Abu Bakr sent word to him to wait until he could send reinforcements, because this was in fact during the Ridda Wars. So the Mujahideen were busy at that time, so he was trying to get reinforcements to Ikramah. And here's an example of, well, whose side do you think Allah was on in that battle? Obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on the side of the Muslims. It's against literally a false prophet, someone who's calling himself a prophet. So obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be on the side of the Muslims. Ikramah decided to attack anyway before he got the reinforcements. So he disobeyed what Abu Bakr had told him because he just felt so passionately about defeating this
liar.
Yeah, this liar. And the Muslims were turned back. The Muslims were defeated and they had to retreat. Okay.
So
is there a problem when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu told Ikramah to wait for reinforcements? Does that mean that there's a problem in the aqeedah of Abu Bakr? Does that mean that he didn't have tawakkul?
Yeah, or that he didn't have,
or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wasn't on the side of the Muslims? Use your brain. Use your common sense. The Muslims didn't go into any battle. Like we talked about before about Khalid bin al-Walid. He was a master strategist. He wasn't just the Saif Allah. He wasn't just the sword of Allah.
Yeah, he didn't just go.
He was a master strategist.
On the blind.
Yeah. That's one of the gifts that Allah gave him, was the ability to strategize and as a tactician in battle. The Muslims never just went willy-nilly into a battle and said, tawakkal ala Allah. Let's just go and we'll win. No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay, we have a question.
That's why they will call you a drug dealer for saying things like that in Egypt. I've talked about it many times. There's a great gap and chasm between Muslims in the West and Muslims in the Muslim world. Muslims in the Muslim world and Muslims in what we should call the diaspora. Because that's what you are. You're Muslims in the diaspora. And typically, this even goes back to that ridiculous tweet and the magical thinking, the drug dealing, the ideological drug dealing that is in that tweet, the thinking that's in that tweet. This is a kind of extremism that is completely alien to Muslims in the Muslim world, and will be seen as extreme by Muslims in the Muslim world, and again, as I said, completely unrealistic and completely out of touch with reality, both reality of the dunya and the reality of Islam and what Islam expects of you. There's a weird paradox or contradiction in Muslims internationally in their views about Saudi Arabia. On the one hand, they hate Saudi Arabia, and on the other hand, they expect Saudi Arabia to be better than anybody else. Like, you hold them up to a higher standard than you hold your own countries, and a higher standard than you hold your own self and your household. You hold them to a higher standard. And if they're just a little bit below, a little bit closer to your actual living standard, the standard that you yourself in your house and your family that you live by, if they just come a little bit close to the way you actually are in your life, you say that they're hypocrites, and that they're de-Islamizing and that they're secularizing and so forth. It's absurd.
Why is Europe being destabilized by its own government? Do they not see how this affects them? Here in the UK, there's not a sector that's not striking. Going on strikes.
Yeah, it doesn't affect them. How does it affect them? How does it affect the people who are making the decisions? It doesn't affect the people who are making the decisions. It just affects the people whose those decisions are being implemented against. It doesn't affect them. They're the elites, and they're not making those decisions for the sake of Britain, and they're not making those decisions for the sake of Europe. They're not making those decisions for the sake of Germany or France or anywhere else. They're making those decisions for the sake of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital and their own pockets.
Yeah. So it's the third worldization of Europe.
Yeah, it's the third worldization of Europe, and I think one of the large drivers of that is demographics, as I've talked about many times. The entire population of Europe is aging and dying much more rapidly than they're being born. So this is not good for business. You don't have people to do the work. You don't have people to buy the products. And if you have a lower and lower, I talked about this, I think, in one of the news breakdowns. When you have a smaller population, then that's not even good for companies in terms of what they can pay in salaries, because they want to be able to drive wages down. And one of the ways they can drive wages down is when you have a voluminous workforce. When you have fewer and fewer workers, you can't dictate wage suppression as easily. So, I mean, there's many factors. There's many factors. And another obvious factor is that it is and always has been, and this is, again, one of the reasons why I believe that their psyche developed the way it did from primordial Europe, is because it's not rich in natural resources. They don't have anything to offer, which is why they had to go everywhere else in the world and take everyone else's stuff.
Yeah.
Because they don't have anything.
And then Aisha adds on, they had a hand in so many governments being toppled, usually from planting disdain in the people. Are they not afraid of the same will happen to them?
Of course they are.
Yeah, that's why they are arming.
Yeah, of course they are. This is why there's this heavy emphasis on militarization and security and so forth, and all of these rules to ban and to punish so-called free speech, freedom of expression, protests, demonstrations, and so on. They're preempting what they expect to be civil unrest, because they know that their policies will cause civil unrest. But they're getting ready for that. They're anticipating that. In America as well.